Hey everybody, it's Miss Kate again. Today I wanted to talk to you guys about something that you can do with your kids at home in regard to language, specifically spoken language, which is the first entryway into language, whether it is um, reading, writing, and any kind of expression. We always start with spoken language. And these are things that are excellent for the really little ones, 2.5, 3. They're really excellent for the 4s. They're really excellent for the 5s, and even the 6s that have already been kind of started to show interest and even work in writing and reading. I will, in another video, give some specific examples on how you can help um, build their confidence in those areas as well. But I wanted to start with the foundation, which is spoken language. And I wanted to share 3 things that you guys can very easily do at home that's not going to feel like homework, and it's not going to feel like any kind of pressure on you um, or on them, which again, I really want to stress. They're 3 to 6 years old. There's no reason for this for academic pressure right now. They'll have plenty. Um, so some really easy things that we can do with our kids at home, and I have a 7-year-old, and we still do these things because communication starts with spoken language. So the 3 things I want to talk about is classifying objects, and sound games, and also stories and conversations and things like that. So with classifying objects is really it's a big introduction into the child's culture and into their community. We all have different names for different things. There's so much vocabulary in language that, if you think about how much your child has already learned at 3, 4, 5, and 6, it's pretty tremendous. And that's just by absorbing it all in naturally. We can help them specifically, and I really stress from the very beginning, from birth, always using real names for real objects. There's no better way of helping a child, helping a small new human being feel a part of their world than the respect of using the same real words for the real objects that we do with each other. So what you would do is very simply choose a category, whether it is things in their bedrooms, or tools in the kitchen. Yes, I wrote down notes because I tend to wander. The outdoor environment, like the backyard, or if you garden, plants, flowers, herbs, trees, accessories in the house, pictures, frames. I'm looking around my room, wall hangings, containers, bowls, vases, boxes. So you pick one category so that the classification stays concise and has a sense of order for them. And we're doing this again to help enlarge and build your child's vocabulary, to help them classify the environment, and added bonus to help flex their mathematical mind. So much of math is classification. So this is where our development and the Montessori environment are really so interconnected. It's a beautiful thing. So classification of the mind to build confidence in language, refinement of auditory memory, and also preparation for further lessons and further growth. So I am going to choose I'm going on the fly. I'm going to choose the category of containers. We all have them, I think, in our house. We have bowls. It's very likely you have vases. You have pitchers. There's probably a box in your house somewhere. There are probably jars, mugs, anything that is capable of containing something and being moved around is a container. So the way that you would actually introduce or present this lesson, as we call them, is by sharing the category with your child. Like, okay, so let's think of all the containers in this house. Let's try to find them. And depending on your comfortability, you can put out a towel the way we put out a mat in the classroom and gather them all and bring them to this mat and then later have a conversation about them. Or you can incorporate a lot of movement and wander around the house and say, I'm going to look for all the containers on the shelf. Oh, look, Toby, here's a vase. And then Toby might say, oh, look, here's a bowl. Yes, that is a container. Hey, Mom, this is a frame. You're right. Right now we're looking for containers. So they're never wrong, because if they name a frame, it's a frame. Just redirect their energy back to, yeah, we're looking for containers. This is a container. Woo. Look, I have a box. This is a container. So it's as simple as that. And, you know, you'd be surprised how exciting that can be for your little ones. For the older ones, you can then expand that and turn that into, again, kind of just going on the fly, but into a, we have a couple of children in the classroom that are writers. Let's take it one step back from that though. So those that want, you could then write a description. So maybe they'd like to draw a picture of this box, and then they can dictate to you and you can write it out for them, or you can write it in highlighter in cursive. We do cursive at GACM. You can write it out in cursive with a highlighter and they can trace it, and you can do the what, where, when, and why kind of thing. What is this? This is a box. This box is ceramic. It is green. It feels cold. I like this box. My mom gave me this box. And there you have it, a little story about a box. So that's one way you can create a language extension for the older ones. For those that are already writing, let them write it out. And at this stage, spelling does not matter. That will naturally, I promise you, it will naturally come later when it makes a little bit more sense to them. Right now, it's all about sounding it out. It's really just box, which may, depending on the kind of memory they have of our movable alphabet works and sound games, they may hear that and know that it's an X. They may B-A-K-S and B-O-K-S or B-O-C-S. Don't correct them. That's totally fine. If they ask you how to spell something, I would suggest guiding them more than giving it to them by saying, okay, box, what's the first sound you hear? And again, we talk about sounds, the sounds of the letters, not the names of the letters. So because an X, the name X doesn't sound anything like box, or in the case of the word box, O doesn't sound like ah. Ba-ah. We don't say ba-oaks. So really emphasize the sound of the letters. Don't talk about the names, unless of course the child asks, but you know, not to confuse you. But guide them. All right, Azra, what is the first sound you hear in box? B-ox. B. And just emphasize B. B. Yes. B. And then if she'd like to write the B, awesome. If she'd like you to write it in highlighter in cursive, awesome. B. And what's the next sound you hear? B-ox. B-ah. And a little developmental note, it is easier for us to distinguish first sound first, the last sound second, and the middle sound third. So hearing the middle sound is actually very challenging. They may need a little guidance and help with that, and that's okay. They're 3 to 6. Keep it in perspective. So help them sound that out. If they're writing it out by themselves, if you're writing it out for them, I like to sound it out as I'm writing it and say, you can watch what my hands are doing. I also would suggest, rather than them, I'm looking for my pencil, and rather than the child holding the pencil and your hand on top of it, I would have the child put their hand on top of yours and have their muscles follow your muscle, because you've had that you have refined the movement, so they're feeling the correct movement. um, so yeah, that's one way to extend that. Another way you can do this is, let's label all the containers in the classroom, in the house, or in the living room, or in your room, or in the kitchen, or however contained contained or wide or broad do you want to make this. So that's one very easy thing that everyone can do at home to help them grow their language skills. Um, let's see, what other notes do I have about this? Yeah, I think that's all that I really want to share about classification. In the classroom, we do this with real objects. We sometimes do this with pictures, but really just talking to them about real objects and using their real names and talking about what these tools do, or what this object does, or what its purpose is. That's a lot more fascinating and a lot more important than we in our busy lives, in our, really realize. So take the time to do that, and it's very valuable. Don't worry, it is very valuable. You're not wasting anyone's time. There isn't anything more important in that moment. So that's one thing that you guys can very easily do to help build your child's vocabulary and build their spoken language skills and get them ready for writing and reading. Side note, I don't know that I said this first. We always, developmentally, we write or express ourselves first or before we start reading. So that's another reason that spoken language is so important. It's hard to express yourself if you don't have the vocabulary, if you don't know what a box is or what that's called. It's hard to express your heartbreak when that box breaks, or what that feeling of disappointment is called. So that foundation of spoken language is integral in the development of the language as a whole. So the other thing that you can easily do, and again, I still do this with Charlie, who's 7, is the sound game. And this really is a bridge from spoken language to written language. This is where we start to begin to isolate sounds. We always do sounds before symbol, sounds before the letter. So we start to really isolate, what do you hear? And once that is solidified, then we move on to symbol, which would be in the writing category area of the language department. So the purpose for this is as a bridge from spoken to written language. It's specifically designed to support their ability to analyze the components of a word so that they can then sound things out. The sound game really doesn't involve any written symbols. Later on, again, you can create an extension for children that have moved a little bit further into that. So, but the sound game as the foundation is just sounds, and it addresses the sensitive period for language, in the interest in articulation and pronunciation. Let's see. What else can I tell you? So this is something that you guys can do with one child, and for those of you that have more than one child in your family, you can do it with groups. I like to do a variety of levels, because in our auditory process in language, it's easier for us to hear the beginning sound first, the last sound second, and the third is the middle sound. So having a variety of abilities in our group allows us to use the same object to play the sound game. So what else can I? So materials are super easy. Grab a couple of things that the children or child is very familiar with. I got some things. So I have a box, a mug, a pencil, and a candle. These are things that I would not be surprised that you guys also have at home. So you gather these things. You do this wherever you're comfortable. If you want to keep the Montessori principle and some continuity, get a rug or a towel, lay it on the floor, and gather your items there. I don't have a table up here but imagine the candle, the mug, the box, the pencil. And so the purpose is to help the child become aware of sounds in speech, to prepare them for exploration of words and components of words, and to assist in articulation and pronunciation. And it's an indirect preparation for writing. So really, it's super easy. You play a game with these objects. I am thinking of something in my hand that begins with B. Mason, what is in my hand that begins with B? Box. Yes, box. B. I am thinking of something on the table that starts with Jude. Mug. Yes. Mug. Mug starts with I am thinking of something on the tray that begins with K. Candle. Yes. Candle. I am thinking of something on the towel that begins with P. Pencil. That's right. Pencil. You can then rearrange it. Then you can start asking, Jude, you can put something in my hand that begins with B. You put a box in my hand that begins with B. You can put the mug on your nose. You can put the mug in my hand. And just a lot of that, just back and forth. You're the one giving the instruction though. And then the final act of this, which we call the third period, is Jude, what does this start with? And then, because we've practiced so much, yes. And I did forget the very, very beginning part of it, where we all agree on what this is called. Some children might call this a cup. Maybe they might call it a bowl. Let's all be in agreement that this is a mug. Mug starts with so that is that's a pretty crucial thing, that we're all agreeing that it's a pencil, not a, I don't know what, that it's a box, not a container, that it's a candle, not a light, that it's a mug, not a cup, so this is a mug. It starts with So the last part where you know how much they've mastered, and if they didn't master it the first time, this is the beauty of it. It's a whole lot of fun. play it a ton of times. What does this start with? What does that start with? And that is the what is this? So yeah, that is the sound game, and that is a really easy thing. You can do it during dinner. I am thinking about something on my plate that starts with K. Vivian, what is it? Carrots. Yes, I have carrots on my plate. I am thinking of something on my plate that starts with hot dog or whatever. So, I mean, you can play it during dinner, you can play it in the car. It's a lot like I Spy, but with the sound. So that's another really, really easy thing that we can do at home to keep their minds engaged, to help build on what they're doing in the classroom without it being a whole lot of pressure on everybody. Another thing also, and I do want to say we use the sounds of the names, not the letters. So the fact that it's called a B doesn't matter, just the sounds. Really crucial with that. So the last thing that I want to share with the spoken language that we can do, super easy, super valuable, no pressure, no, just a whole lot of fun, is sharing stories, reading poems, having conversations, playing the question game. Sharing stories, like pick something in your house that, I don't know, an object, a painting, a picture, maybe there's a bowl that grandma gave you guys, and Junie, let's have a conversation about this bowl. And just start talking about it. Let's have a conversation about this. I noticed that it's made out of clay. And did you know that grandma gave this to us? And she gave it to us for Christmas. And just have her ask you questions about, just a conversation. This is very valuable. Very, now I'm struggling with my spoken language. But again, it builds their confidence, it builds their ability to communicate, it builds their vocabulary, it builds their relationship with you, which is, again, they're 3 to 6. That's one of the most important things that we are doing right now. And it gives them real names for real objects. What are some other really good things that I can say about this? And have it say what you see, ask the children what they see, respond to the comments, pause to leave room for your child to think and to offer comments. Remember, they process slower than we do, so give them quite a bit of a beat, and just have conversations. Or, hey, you know what, Junie? Today when I was on my walk, I saw the most magnificent bird. Start talking about that. Anything.